Close your eyes for a second and imagine the sheer crushing weight of an entire nation resting purely on your shoulders. You are standing in the dimly lit tunnel of the colossal Dallas Stadium in Texas. The blinding stadium lights are waiting for you at the end of the walkway. The deafening roar of tens of thousands of screaming fans is literally making the concrete floor vibrate beneath your boots. You are exactly 90 minutes away from the round of 32 of the FIFA World Cup 2026. One tiny mistake, one split second of lost concentration, and your ultimate World Cup dream instantly transforms into a haunting nightmare. This was exactly the brutal reality for Japan and Sweden in their explosive Group F encounter. Welcome back to Total Football Nexus. Today, we are taking you deep inside a match that transcended the sport of football, turning into a relentless, exhausting psychological war. Right from the referee's very first whistle, you could practically taste the electricity hanging in the hot Texas air. The stakes could not have been any higher. Both of these incredible teams knew that securing their coveted spot in the knockout stages demanded an absolutely flawless performance. The blazing heat of the stadium was perfectly matched by the sheer, unyielding intensity of the 22 warriors on the pitch. Japan stepped onto the grass deploying a highly aggressive, incredibly fluid 3-4-3 formation. In goal, Zion Suzuki stood tall like an impenetrable fortress, ready to command his penalty area with absolute authority. Just ahead of him, a rock-solid defensive line consisting of Ayumu Seko, Ko Itakura, Hiroki Ito, and Yukinari Sugawara prepared to absorb the inevitable Swedish onslaught. But the real heartbeat for the Samurai Blue existed in the center of the pitch. Daichi Kamada, Io Tanaka, Keito Nakamura, Ritsu Doan, and Daizen Maeda formed a relentless, high-octane engine strictly designed to press, choke, and outrun the European opposition. Up front, Ayase Ueda prowled like a lone wolf, patiently waiting for that one single perfect pass to strike and draw first blood. But what about Sweden? Make no mistake, Sweden did not travel all the way to Texas to simply sit back and defend. They answered Japan's aggression with a highly tactical and deeply physical 3-4-1-2 formation. Jacob Wydell Zetterstrom took his rightful place between the goalposts, radiating an aura of absolute unshakable confidence. The Swedish defense, marshaled by Gustav Lagerbilk, Isak Hien, and the heavily experienced Victor Lindelof, alongside Alexander Bernhardsson, Elliot Stroud, and Gabriel Gudmundsson, formed a terrifying Viking shield wall. In the chaotic middle of the park, Yasin Ayari was given the massive responsibility of pulling the tactical strings. But the true, paralyzing terror of this Swedish side was waiting at the very top of the pitch. Anthony Elanga, Victor Gyökeres, and Alexander Isak, three absolute lethal weapons, each possessing the raw pace, the brutal power, and the surgical precision to dismantle any defensive line in the world in the blink of an eye. As the first half kicked off, the game immediately mutated into a high-speed, breathtaking game of tactical chess. It was a mesmerizing spectacle, but not because of a flood of goals. It was mesmerizing because of the sheer, suffocating tension. Every single pass was heavily calculated. Every single tackle was a violent statement of intent. Japan desperately tried to use their lightning-fast passing combinations to slice through the rigid lines, but the Swedish defense held their ground, throwing their bodies into the line of fire. The physical toll of this silent, grinding war became painfully obvious very early on. In the 32nd minute, the referee's whistle violently pierced through the roaring stadium noise. A harsh, uncompromising challenge from Sweden's Isak Hien forced the referee to reach straight into his pocket. A yellow card, a very stern, early warning that this game was balancing dangerously on the edge of a knife. The first 45 minutes ticked away in a blur of tackles and near misses, and as the referee blew the whistle for halftime, the scoreboard remained deadlocked at 0-0. But do not let that silent scoreline trick you. The first half was merely the deceptive calm before a devastating, historic storm. What was about to happen in the second half? As the players slowly emerged from the dark tunnel for the second half, the atmosphere in Dallas Stadium had fundamentally changed. You could see a different kind of fire burning in their eyes. The cautious, calculated approach of the first half was completely thrown out the window. It was time to risk absolutely everything for glory. The referee blew the whistle and the game instantly shifted into a terrifyingly high gear. Japan came charging out of the gates like a team entirely possessed by the spirit of victory. The Samurai Blue were suddenly exploiting tiny pockets of space that simply did not exist a few minutes ago. Their midfield engine was roaring, and for the very first time in the match, the mighty Swedish defense started to look genuinely panicked. And then, the moment arrived. The 56th minute, the specific second in time that permanently shattered the tense silence. The ball miraculously found its way to Daichi Kamada. Operating
Operating with the cold, calculated instincts of a world-class predator, Maeda instantly saw his golden opportunity. He unleashed an extraordinary, completely unstoppable strike that violently ripped through the Texas air and smashed straight into the back of the net. The entire stadium absolutely erupted into chaos. 1-0. Japan had finally broken the deadlock, taking a massive lead, and the thousands of Japanese fans in the stands descended into a state of pure, unadulterated delirium. But if anyone in that stadium actually thought the mighty Swedes were just going to roll over and surrender, they clearly do not understand the DNA of Swedish football. They possess a fierce, relentless Viking spirit that simply refuses to accept defeat. They absorbed the crushing emotional punch, quickly reset their defensive lines, and immediately launched a furious, desperate counteroffensive. The wild Japanese celebrations had barely even settled down when the Swedish attack struck back with terrifying, lethal speed. Just 6 short minutes later, the 62nd minute, a loose ball broke perfectly inside the danger zone, and right there, waiting in the shadows, was Anthony Elanga. Fast, incredibly deadly, and completely composed under the crushing weight of the entire stadium. Elanga pulled the trigger without a second of hesitation, sending the ball flying wildly past a helpless Zion Suzuki. Boom! The net violently rippled once again, 1-1. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, Sweden had risen from the dead. The concrete stadium physically shook once again as the massive yellow sea of Swedish fans erupted in an explosion of pure joy. 6 minutes of absolute, unfiltered footballing madness had completely turned the entire World Cup narrative upside down. With the score agonizingly tied once again, the final 20 minutes mutated into a desperate, brutally physical battlefield. The tackles became significantly heavier, the lungs burned brighter, the sheer desperation was painted on every single player's face. Both managers started desperately throwing on their final secret weapons. Japan threw Koki Ogawa, Junya Ito, Yuto Nagatomo, and Shogo Taniguchi into the blazing fire, desperately praying that fresh legs would somehow conjure a late historic winner. Sweden immediately answered the call by throwing Lucas Bergvall, Daniel Svensson, Ken Sema, Carl Starfelt, and Benjamin Nygren straight into the chaotic war zone. The unimaginably high psychological pressure finally began to crack. In the 77th minute, Japan's substitute Shogo Taniguchi was forced into a desperate tactical foul, instantly earning himself a harsh yellow card. The clock was mercilessly ticking down, with every single passing second feeling like an entire lifetime. In the 85th minute, the overwhelming frustration completely boiled over for Sweden's star forward Viktor Gyökeres, who was also shown a yellow card by the unyielding referee. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the referee lifted the whistle to his mouth and signaled the definitive end of the war. 1-1. A spectacular, exhausting draw. Both sets of players instantly sank to the turf, their bodies completely drained. But as they looked up at the giant stadium screens, the beautiful reality finally hit them. They had both survived the group of death. This hard-fought, bloody draw was exactly enough. Both Japan and Sweden had officially booked their golden tickets to the round of 32. Sweden marches confidently forward, keeping their ultimate World Cup dream alive. But for Japan, their massive celebration comes heavily attached to a terrifying looming shadow, because waiting patiently for them in the ruthless knockout rounds is the ultimate, impossible test, a date with pure destiny against the legendary 5-time world champions Brazil. Can Japan do the absolute impossible? Can the Samurai Blue pull off the greatest upset in football history and slay the Brazilian giant on the world's biggest stage? Let me know exactly what you think. Drop your most honest predictions in the comments section down below right now. And listen, if your heart is still racing from this unbelievable World Cup clash, you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button to show your support, share this thrilling breakdown with every single football fanatic you know, and make sure you smash that subscribe button to join the Total Football Nexus family for more world-class football stories. We will see you in the next one.